One of the more surprising players from this past season for the Devils was Johnathan Kovacevic. We will reflect on his 2024-2025 season. You will also hear from Kovacevic throughout the course of the episode. There's a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Steven stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here at the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play announcer, Devils Wire Pucks Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. First and foremost, I hope everybody got college football 26, and I am not getting paid to say this. This is a request from the bottom of my heart. Everybody pick Arizona State University as your team because, as EA Sports revealed, the more you play with a certain team, the more NIL money EA Sports will give to that program for obviously their likeness and whatnot. So from one proud Sun Devil to you guys, the New Jersey Devils fan base, please play as the ASU Sun Devils. They're a really good team, and I think they would be fun to use in Dynasty. Once again, not getting paid, just a proud Sun Devil. But on to business. What's on the agenda for today's episode? We're going to do a retrospective discussion on Johnathan Kovacevic and his surprising first year with the Devils. In the first segment, I will share his stats from this past season. Then in the second segment, we will talk about his injury because he is set to miss some time to begin next year. And then in the third and final segment, Kovacevic is honestly one of the better players on the Devils roster when it comes to giving interviews. And he went in depth as to what went wrong with the team. He wasn't able to give a definitive answer, but just the fact that he went into detail, was very honest about it. I wanted to share it with you guys because I found it quite compelling. All right, Kovacevic, 2024-2025. He put up only one goal, but that's okay. He's not here to create offense. That's not his bread and butter. He had 16 assists, which was third among Devils defensemen. He had a plus-minus rating of +10, second on the team, just below Jack Hughes. He had 99 blocks, third among Devils defensemen, just below Pesce and Dillon. He had 102 hits, second among defensemen, behind Brendan Dillon. He had 28 takeaways, second on the team, just below Luke Hughes. You know, we've talked about how Luke has improved defensively, and that metric shows it. But getting back to Kovacevic, yes, he was one of the top players on the team when it came to takeaways, but he also led the team in giveaways with 100 turnovers even. I'm just saying this. For anyone who ridicules Dougie Hamilton, I get it. Sometimes Hamilton can be a bit of a bonehead on defense. Sometimes he's not the fastest skater, but remember, Kovacevic actually led the team in giveaways, and I didn't really hear anyone give him that much crap on social media about it. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying, let's not project Hamilton to be the worst defenseman in the NHL. Let's be grateful for his services. But getting back to Kobe, I just mentioned he's not here to produce offense. He had an offensive point share rating of -0.1, but he led the team in defensive point share with a 5.0 rating, giving him a point share rating total of 4.9, third among Devils defensemen, below Dougie Hamilton and Luke Hughes. Those two obviously had way better numbers when it came to an offensive point share rating. He had an expected goals for rating of 47.9, ninth on the team. As my faithful audience already knows, I was rather high on Kovacevic when he was dealt to New Jersey. I'll talk about those expectations I had for him going into the season momentarily. But here's what Covey had to say during exit interviews when it came to expectations on himself and how his role was going to be with New Jersey. Take a listen.
What were your expectations for yourself coming into this year? We've heard so much from Sheldon how, maybe you were number 7 on the depth chart, but you gave them no other option but to keep you in there consistently. What were your expectations for yourself? And did you, you mentioned a little bit there, did you exceed your own expectations?
Yeah, I think, looking back, like my expectations, I didn't try to put like a, direct like label on them just because there's a lot of things that, I've come to learn are not in your control. Like if you come in and you start as the 7th defenseman, that's not really in your control, but, just focusing on what you can control, like your game, your preparation, how you approach every single practice, every single game. Like those are kind of the expectations I have for myself. And I found obviously this year when I took care of those things and just focused on my own game, then the other things took care of itself, and I was fortunate that at the beginning I got an opportunity right away. Pesh and Luke weren't in, so I kind of got an increased role right away and did well with it, and kind of our team just took off from there. And so things kind of fit naturally, and that's what happens sometimes. I think people say like opportunity is when luck meets preparation. I feel like I was really prepared for the moment and prepared my whole career. Like I learned so many lessons in Montreal and in Winnipeg, and those lessons as you get older, things start to come together, and it was awesome that they all kind of came together at points of the year.
Okay, going back to summer 2024, the Devils traded away a 4th-round pick in exchange for Kovacevic, and I said it was an underrated move by Fitzy because 2023, 2024, Kovacevic once again led the Canadiens in defensive point shares with a rating of 2.7. He had a plus-minus rating of plus 11, also led the team. He had 83 blocks, 5th. He had a point share rating of 3.3, 8th. He had 75 hits, 8th on the team. It's kind of amazing that this season he was able to bump his hits total up a little bit more. He had 102, but then again, he did play in more games with the Devils. Someone actually asked me, like, was that metric all that necessary, saying that he had 75 hits during the 2023-2024 season? And I said, yes, it actually is, because for reference, that season for the Devils, Siegenthaler had 87, Hughes, Nemitz, and Marino all had less than 40. So I felt as though Kovacevic definitely added more physicality, albeit not the most physical defenseman in the NHL. I said, don't sleep on Kovacevic. I know more people were focused on Jacob Markstrom, Brett Pesce, Brendan Dillon, Stefan Nason reuniting with Tomas Tatar, but I said that I expected a lot out of Kovacevic. At the time, I said he wasn't going to appear in all the games, but I said for any game he does appear in, I think he's going to be very serviceable for the Devils. And he was given a golden opportunity to begin the year. Because remember, Luke Hughes and Brett Pesce, they weren't ready to start the season. They were still recovering from their respective injuries. So insert players like Kovacevic and Casey into the lineup, and they made the most of their opportunities, particularly with Kovacevic. And I said, there's no way Kovacevic can be a healthy scratch from here on out. He needs to play in all the games. He's a great defensive-minded defenseman. He's helping the Devils in all sorts of metrics. He needs to remain in the lineup. What I noticed from Kovacevic was that he was playing with a physical edge around the net, which also helped him get more playing time. He is at his best when he keeps his game simple in the defensive end. I see him being a solid all-around defenseman once he adds more to his offensive game. We'll talk more about that in the second segment. But Kovacevic's success not only led him to more playing time, but it led him to a new contract with the Devils that he signed during the trade deadline, which I guess that became the Devils' biggest move on that particular day. He signed a 5-year, $20 million extension, cap hit $4 million. He also has trade protection. He has a no trade clause, so the Devils are stuck with him for the next couple of seasons. Say what you want to say about that no trade clause, but seeing some other contracts around the league, I think that was a good bargain because let's use a former Devil as an example. Kevin Ball, he signed a 6-year, $32.1 million extension with the Flames. Ball, solid defenseman. Was he worth that kind of money? I don't really know. I'll be honest, I didn't really pay all that close attention to the Flames and their season, but it seems like Ball and the Flames are in a good spot and they believe in one another. So Ball got that pay increase, and I do hope that pans out well for the Flames because remember, Ball was utilized in the Jacob Markstrom trade. Ball has a cap hit of $5.35 million. Just comparing those two specific contracts and once again looking at some other contracts that were signed within the last few weeks, good deal for Tom Fitzgerald. All right. We're going to talk about Kovacevic's injury and how he hopes to grow his game come next season. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I've actually used Indeed before to book myself some play-by-play gigs. I use it to this very day. I still get email notifications. I always check in on Indeed's website. Really good. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support my show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. Okay, let's hammer out the bigger news surrounding Kovacevic this offseason, which is his injury that he sustained in Game 2 of the first round against the Hurricanes. Obviously, he did not return for the rest of the series. Sheldon Keefe even said that he would be surprised if Kovacevic was good to go for the rest of the playoffs. It was him, Brendan Dillon, Luke Hughes. The Devils' blue line was just dropping like flies, and it just lessened any chance that the Devils had of coming away with an upset in that series. Kovacevic spoke on his injury and what the situation is looking like going into next season. Take a listen.
I kind of went into a hit and my knee felt a little bit funny and it felt a little off. Played the rest of the period. But in the intermission, I went, got it checked out, and the doc said, I can't go back out there.
And then how maybe will that, like, what is sort of that full recovery process like? Does that hinder what you're able to do this summer? Like, what?
Yeah, still kind of sorting things out now, but yeah, it looks like I'm gonna have to get surgery, and I'll be out, for a decent amount of time. I don't anticipate I'll be ready for the start of next year either.
How maybe disappointing is that just from what you experienced this year, really your first year here and you earn yourself that contract, like what was it like for you?
Yeah, it was, up until then, like personally it was going great, and I was having a good year. Like you said, I got to play every game, got to play big minutes and be a big part of the team. So yeah, it's obviously disappointing. Like I said, a lot of times, the good and the bad in life just kind of come together, and sometimes, you have a good year. And so I want to, stay focused on the positives and think, I will be back next year and I will be, stronger and a better athlete and, I'll take care of myself more. I'm going to learn a lot of lessons through this. So I'm going to be better for it on the other side. It's going to be, I have to be patient. It's going to, I don't want to rush this back or anything. And, but I just want to do everything I can to make sure that, I'm the best I can be when I do get back.
Tom Fitzgerald revealed a few weeks ago that Kovacevic will not be ready to go at the beginning of the season. He's recovering well, but he's nowhere close to beginning next year. And this goes back to a point that I've been making the last few weeks on this platform, which is I don't know what your opinions are when it comes to Dougie Hamilton, but if you just trade him away as a salary dump, it really doesn't do the Devils any favors because Kovacevic will miss the start of the season. How long will he be out? Only time will tell. Will it be like a month? Will it be a few months? Will the Devils send him down so that way he can rehab and try to work his way back? You never know. So I think with Kovacevic being out, it solidifies Dougie's position even more because with Kovacevic out, you're already going to have to give either Shimon Nemitz or Seamus Casey a bigger role. And if you take Hamilton out the equation, are you willing to give Casey and Nemitz a bigger role? Both of them, not just one or the other, because both of them still have some kinks to work out. The sentiment, at least for me, doesn't change when it comes to his contract. But there's your update when it comes to Kovacevic. He won't be ready to go come the start of the season. And hopefully he's back sooner rather than later because he was one of the Devils' best defensive-minded defensemen. I had the chance to ask him, when reflecting on his season, how would he assess his impact prior to the injury and what would he like to work on? Here's what he had to tell me.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, my style of game, like I'm not necessarily overly focused on the numbers and stats and points and that. I think I was really happy with my ability to make plays in the D zone, like exiting cleanly, making breakouts, like clean exits like that. I was happy with that because that's a lot of like the touches and stuff that I work on in the summer kind of came to fruition during the year. That being said, I do think that I can add a little more offense to my game. I think in general, that's something that as a team we were looking for, like more depth scoring and stuff. And I'm not saying that I'm a depth scorer, but like I'm just saying that like maybe we could add a little more, 5-on-5 offense from guys like me, from defensemen, from just making a few plays without compromising who I am as a player. Like I know who I am as a player, and that's not what got me here. Like, so I want to make sure that my foundation stays the same and I'm not taking any unnecessarily risks or anything, but maybe I could add a little bit more.
It's interesting how Kovacevic mentioned the 5-on-5 offense because as the season progressed, the Devils offense, it struggled. I think that's not a hot take. They struggled to produce any sort of momentum, and that's why the Devils got shut out so many times this season. Now, to their credit, their goaltending and defense improved, but their offense took a step backwards a little too far for my liking. But it's a different system. Sheldon Keefe and company said that they were more focused on being a defensive-minded team and not being a run and gun style that was utilized when Lindy Ruff was behind the bench. But Kovacevic is not the only person to say that the Devils need to improve their depth scoring, that they need to improve 5-on-5. And he talked about how he wants to improve because aside from Dougie Hamilton and Luke Hughes, who else was producing offense for the Devils? I looked at his offensive point share rating. Kovacevic, he had an offensive point share rating in the negatives, and he wasn't the only Devils defenseman. I think the Devils need more offense when it comes to their blue line production. And unfortunately, Seamus Casey, he was really good in it, but he's an undersized defenseman. And Sheldon Keefe said that sometimes it was easy to bench Casey because he still has a lot more things to smoothen out before he's given a bigger role. So Kovacevic mentioning that offense on the blue line could improve, I found that very intriguing, and I can't say he's wrong. When it comes to depth scoring, it could come in all sorts of ways. Going back to the 2022-2023 season, you could talk about Heischer, Hughes, Bratt, Meyer, Mercer, Tatar. All of them produced a decent amount of goals. But Hamilton also produced 20-plus goals himself, which was a big help for the Devils. All right, we're going to talk about the Devils season from Kovacevic's perspective momentarily. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must watch events. Whether I'm placing a same game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Okay, in the previous segment, I mentioned how Kovacevic gave examples as to how the Devils could improve. But during exit interviews, Amanda Stein asked a series of excellent questions, which is what went wrong this past season for the Devils? And Kovacevic explained in great detail, and I found the discussion intriguing, and I wanted to share it on my platform. Here's what he had to tell me, Amanda, and the rest of the media.
An insightful way of looking at the game, both on the macro level and the micro level. If you were to look at that stretch where you guys played so well before the Christmas break, you go into that break and then come out and you don't have that same type of momentum. Like, how do you sort of view what that sort of did for your season?
Yeah.
Not you personally, but as a group.
Yeah. Like I think it was, to be quite honest, like a little puzzling for us. Like we were trying to figure it out. Like we were, meeting, whether that be with the coaches or just the players talking to, and like you said, we were rolling. Before Christmas break, I think we had maybe a stretch of 7 games or so where we set a record like 15 shots or less, and like everyone was like our structure, our team, commitment to defense. We were rolling for sure, and I'm not going to pretend I have the answer for you because it was a little puzzling. We were trying to figure it out, and I do think that we could have figured out. It could have just been a sense of we thought it was going to come because it came, and you kind of forget how hard it was to get there and how much hard work you put in.
Right.
So maybe it was a product of that, and just thinking that it was going to come and come together. Like we're maybe in a slump for a few weeks, and it'll come back, and it still wasn't come back. We're like, it'll just come back, and then we maybe. So it could be that. I'm not gonna pretend I have the answer. It was a tough part of the year. I think, we'll kind of reflect on that, and if it's hopefully in the future it doesn't happen, but if it's starting to happen, maybe we could recognize it a little bit earlier.
So in that same vein, what's more valuable, that moment of where you guys were playing so well, or where it fell off? Do you know what I mean? In terms of
I think both. I think that's what I've noticed in my career, in my life. There's lessons that can only be taught in the good times, and there's some lessons that can only be taught in the bad times. So I think as long as you approach it that way and take the lessons from both, I think honestly both could be equally as valuable.
It was really a tale of two halves for the Devils. First half, before the Christmas break, they were rolling. Bill Spalding even said it on air that the team was special, but to close out the regular season, they were anywhere from average to mediocre. At least they still made it to the playoffs. So technically that's an improvement, because 2023, 2024, they missed the playoffs entirely. I think Tom Fitzgerald has made some solid additions with Evgeny Dodonov and also Connor Brown, but I don't think that's enough to really move the needle for the Devils. I still need to see Luke Hughes' extension, and I need to see who's out the door. Is it Palat, Mercer, or Hamilton? The suspense is killing me. I'm being a little overdramatic, but you get the point I'm just trying to make. But let me know your thoughts. What did you think of Johnathan Kovacevic's season? Did he meet or exceed your expectations? You better say exceed, because I don't think anybody anticipated for Kovacevic to be that good. And what are your expectations for him come next year when he's fully healthy? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X page app at TrainMatt4 or the show's X page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day in New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again.